this time we're talking about applications of AI in our domestic important areas of our lives in education. So Tom is from TUMO, and so will present how AI can be applied for education. Please. Thank you. See you. That's it. So I'm going to start with a brief overview of how did we get here in terms of AI with education. What's been happening over the last couple of years in particular? So one of the things that was really kickstarting the move towards AI for education was the uptake of AI in the workplace. And there was a study done in Denmark, which covered a very large number of people, I think over 100,000, to understand how people were using AI in the workplace and which professions were people using AI in. And so what you could see is sort of small, but top is software developers. Software engineering is by far largest profession in which AI is being used, followed by fields like marketing, journalism, IT, and towards the sort of bottom middle, we see teachers also merit. But what does this mean? Well, so many of us are now using AI for our jobs, and it's about to become a skill that we need to become competent in. Well, we should probably be teaching our students how to use AI effectively, not only so that they can use it for their jobs, but also so that they can use it for learning as well. So there were a couple of interesting studies that kind of laid foundation for AI in education. And a recent survey in the US found that 82% undergraduates and almost 3/4 of Python students were using AI for their schoolwork. And out of these, around just over half, 56%, were using AI for Python assignments. And so the uptake of AI on students is very high, actually much higher than the workplace still noticed. But how is this affecting education? How is this affecting people's learning outcomes and the effectiveness of studying in school? Well, there was another controlled study that was it to understand what the impacts of using AI was. And specifically, this study done by University of Pennsylvania, they asked two groups of students. The first students, they gave access to GPT-4, just the ChatGPT interface, without any further guidance or instructions. And the second group, they gave GPT-4, but with some chooser prompts. So they customized the system frames of the LLM so that it was fine converse with you in an educational manner. It wouldn't just either us straight away from software. And what they noticed was that Hong Kong grades improved magically, both these groups. So just by using AI,
students were probably just getting AI to answer their homework questions for them. And the group that had access to ChatGPT without any guidance or instructions performed 17% worse in their final exams than those who were given GPT with a tutor prompt. So the lesson from this is that if we just give AI to students without any guidance, without any thought to how this might impact learning, students are actually performing a lot worse as a result. So this is really very important for us to understand what the impact of AI is going to be and how we can use AI effectively so that education doesn't become meaningless and that students are not using these tools maybe to get their homework done faster, but actually not learning anything as a result. So to address this, the major AI providers over the last year or so have released what they're calling study modes. And you may have heard about some of these. OpenAI recently released their study mode. This is another feature in ChatGPT. Google released guided learning in Gemini. And Anthropic released Claude for education. But what are these? Are they actually useful? Well, basically they're all LLMs with a tutor prompt. Basically addressing this need for having an LLM to not just give you an answer straight away, but to try and challenge you or ask you questions before giving you an answer. And they're calling this the Socratic learning style, this idea that you are challenged a bit more. You're asked questions. Instead of give me the answer to this problem, instead it tries to get you to work through the problem yourself. In addition, instead of just giving you the final answer, they will often try and give you like a step-by-step like solution to the problem. But to be honest, they're really bad, and they still suffer from a lot of the really big problems that we have with LLMs in general. This is where I was running a very simple prompt. Can you help me explain some prompt engineering techniques? And it gives me a wall of text like this. I call this the wall of text syndrome. Nobody can really read all of this. Like, you don't want to have to parse through all of this. It's not very interactive. It's not very easy to see what this is about. I'm not even sure what it's trying to tell me. And no LLM right now has really solved this problem of being able to explain things in the way that a human might. It's still very much like giving me Wikipedia articles about everything that I ask. So what's missing here? What happened to the pedagogy in study modes? Well, study mode LLMs, they dive into structured responses too early. Like, I ask for help on a particular problem, and it tries to solve it for me. It tries to be the helpful assistant. But maybe that's not what I want. That's not necessarily what a good coach would do. It's not like, okay, I'm going to show you the solution step by step. Instead, I should try to understand what your level is first. I should try to understand what your weak points are. Maybe you can get started with solving the problem, and maybe you get stuck somewhere else. The other thing is that there's very little reflection. An important part of learning is reflecting on what you've understood. I've just explained some new material to you, but how do you know whether you really understood what you learned or not? You should try to reflect on what you learned, try to express the ideas in your own words, and get some feedback on that. So these study modes don't really do that. They follow up with questions, but they don't really check your understanding in any deep way. Another big problem is memory. So the advantage of a teacher or a coach is that your coach will learn about your level over time. Like, the more time that you spend with them, they begin to understand what your weak points are. What is it that you're trying to learn? What are you trying to achieve? LLMs have not really solved this problem. ChatGPT has this memories feature, but it's really not that sophisticated. And most other LLMs, they're not trying to learn especially with education, trying to learn the things that you know and the things that you don't know over time, which is very important when presenting new material, because if you're learning a new topic, maybe you already understand a large part of it and you want to get into a deeper topic, and maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you need to start more basic. The other big problem with LLMs is sycophancy. They're too agreeable. If I ask ChatGPT for an answer and I plead with it and I get really impatient and aggressive with it, it will give up and it will finally give me what I want. This is not what a good coach should do. Like, it's not about just giving you exactly what you asked for every single time. Sometimes you need to be challenged a bit. Sometimes you need to be forced to work through a problem yourself first. So currently, most LLMs are not able to achieve the kind of pedagogy that we would consider good teaching practices, even with these study modes. So this leads us to the question, how should we be doing education with AI? Is there something different that we could be doing? And there are some key ideas that are kind of instructive to decide how we might go about this. So there are a few studies that I'm going to mention that kind of illustrate how AI might actually be useful. When you're learning something, it's often useful to watch an expert doing the thing that you're learning. For example, if you're learning how to code, it's useful to watch a senior engineer coding, doing that allows you to see like how they're working, the kinds of processes they use. Maybe you notice the keyboard shortcuts or the way that they start organizing code. So watching an expert is very useful. It's almost like you're an apprentice. You want to work with somebody who is an expert in the thing that you're learning because you can watch them, you can understand what they're doing. And this is much more effective than unguided instruction. So instead, imagine a teacher just says, okay, here's the problem, just go figure it out. Here's a coding exercise, just go and solve it in whichever way you think you can. And there is some value to that. You will learn to think for yourself. But if you only learn this way, you're never going to learn like techniques and ideas that maybe you haven't thought of. This is why it's useful to watch YouTube videos, for example, of people demonstrating how to do things. So there's another level to this. And another study showed that in addition to watching an expert practice their profession, it's also useful to watch a novice who is just learning this at the same time as you. So for example, to take the coding example again, if you're watching an expert coder solve a problem, maybe because they're an expert, they're doing things so fast or they're doing things at such a level that you're not really able to follow what they're doing. And this is not so helpful when you're just starting out because, yes, you want to attain that level, but it's too advanced for you. Instead, it's useful to be learning alongside or with somebody who's more of a novice, maybe somebody who's closer to you in their level. And by watching the error-filled efforts of a novice alongside watching the efforts of an expert, you can learn faster and learn better because you can look at the novice and you can maybe empathize or see the same mistakes that you're making and what they're making as well. Finally, the key thing that is really needed to really learn effectively is to have somebody watch you and to give you feedback. And this is what a coach would normally be doing. A coach is watching you do the exercise, is watching you code, watching you solve the problem, and they can give you instant feedback on what you're doing. Maybe you're making the same mistake all the time. But what's especially useful actually is getting feedback on the times where you make a bit of progress. If your coach is always telling you about the things that you're doing wrong, you're going to get demotivated, you're going to get unhappy. So your coach should not only correct you when you're making mistakes, but also needs to push you a bit or to reward you when you get things right. So how could we reinvent or take these concepts and sort of reinvent what we're calling self-guided learning? Well, we want to take all of these elements, this idea of watching an expert, of learning with somebody who's a novice, of having a coach observe what you're doing and give you instant feedback. And what we're building at TUMO is exactly with this idea. Instead of having an LLM and the students just typing questions and getting answers, instead, students should be able to work through exercises, to work through problems, to have concepts explained to them. But at the same time, they're not alone in this. They're also working alongside an AI co-learner. So what we have here in this basic interface, on the left, we have our coach who is providing guidance, is providing the instructions for the students. We have a workspace. In this case, this workspace is meant to represent a chat interface. This is for learning how to do prompt engineering. And the idea here is our student can use their workspace to run prompts, to run or try to solve the challenges and exercises that the teacher gives them. But at the same time, they have a co-learner. And this co-learner, it could be a human student, but actually we've also built an AI co-learner as well. And your AI co-learner is working alongside you, is solving the same tasks as you, but maybe is making mistakes, or maybe they're doing things really well. The idea here is that you get, as a learner, you get the benefit of a coach giving you advice, giving you feedback, of being able to collaborate with a co-learner who maybe is doing better or worse than you. The coach can see exactly what you're doing in your workspace and is able to give you instant feedback. And another important element is reflection. So once you've been doing this kind of exercise, you can have a conversation with either the coach or co-learner to reflect on all of the things that you've learned. So how are we actually designing this? What does the activity look like? The co-learner, yes. So the co-learner is essentially another AI student. We've designed it so that depending on the exercise, and this is customizable, the co-learner is either more advanced than you or less advanced, or maybe it switches during the activity. And the idea is that when you're learning how to do something, let's say you're learning a particular prompting technique, you can watch the co-learner fail at this task, and maybe you can give the co-learner some advice. Maybe you can teach them what to do. Like if you've just learned a new technique, a great way to demonstrate your understanding is to teach someone else. So you can teach the co-learner the skill that you've just learned. Or maybe the opposite is true. Maybe the co-learner comes up with a smart idea maybe you didn't think of. This is more like the expert. And you see the co-learner do this idea and you think, oh, that was smart. Maybe I should do that. So the co-learner is supposed to be somebody who's more of a friend rather than a teacher. So their role is different. The way that they speak is similar to how you speak. They're not like a formal tutor. They're a bit more informal, a bit more friendly. So by having a co-learner alongside, it makes those parts of learning a bit more easy. So yeah, I've already explained some of this part. So we have these workspaces. The workspaces in this example are like chatbot interfaces, but this could be any kind of interface. For graphic design, for example, it could be a canvas with drawing tools. For filmmaking, for example, it could be a timeline interface. So right now, we're working specifically on AI skills because we're building the AI skill area for students at TUMO. But in general, this is a very flexible system. You can apply this to any skill. You could apply this to all of the skills that TUMO does. So some other key elements maybe to point out. We've also been adding speech and voice to this interface as well. You see at the moment here, it's mostly text. We don't want walls of text. I said already that was a bad thing. So having voice really makes things a bit easier for students, especially if they can listen to what the teacher is saying rather than having to read it. The same is true for typing. A lot of our younger students find it very hard to type quickly. And this really makes it difficult for them to interact with LLMs. It's a usability issue. You can't write fast. So if we have a good speech-to-text model, which we're also working on adding, this will allow our students to have much faster interactions with our interface. They'll be able to describe or write their prompts or speak with the coach and the co-learner without having to spend a lot of time typing. So what does this look like from the sort of designer interface, the person who's actually creating this activity? Well, the way that we've done this, we don't want the LLM to just do whatever it thinks is best. We want to guide our AI through this activity. And the way we did this is to structure the activity into what we call nodes. And each node describes sort of a scene or an interaction within the activity. It could be something like the teacher introduces the activity and asks the students whether they're familiar with the concept or not. It could be something like presenting an exercise and evaluating how they did on the exercise.
It's like a very detailed syllabus.
A very detailed syllabus, but it's not just what you're learning, but also what the characters are doing as well. So if we want, for example, the co-learner to respond in a certain way, we can provide those instructions as well. And I have a slightly more detailed version here. Each node has two important elements. We have instructions and evaluation. Instructions is a free-form prompt where you describe what each character in the activity needs to do or should do. So we have three characters, the coach, the student, and the co-learner. And in one prompt, you describe what each character does. So we don't need separate prompts for separate characters. It all goes into one large prompt. The second part is evaluation. The evaluation describes when to move on from this node. So if you've given the student an exercise, you want to check whether they did it well. Did they satisfy the requirements? What kind of feedback should the coach give if the student gets it wrong? All of this can be described in an evaluation prompt. The other important element here is where to move next. Let's say you struggled a lot with this particular exercise, like you're really having a hard time. We know this because you'll be going rounds and trying many times. We can keep track of that. Maybe instead we should take you to instead of continuing with the rest of it, maybe we should take you to revise some previous part of the activity. Maybe there was a concept that we went past too quickly and you didn't get. Or the opposite, what if you're just going through this super fast, it's super easy, in which case you don't want to hang around, let's jump to somewhere more advanced. So we have this idea of branching, where in a more complex activity structure, you could move to either depth activities or revision activities, depending on how you're going. So we're trying to adapt to the student's level, and we're measuring that based on how quickly the student is progressing, how well they're completing the exercises or the activities as described in the evaluation prompts. So by doing this, we're able to adapt much better than, let's say, a traditional study mode from a normal LLM. So how is this actually architected underneath? What's going on? Well, as you can imagine, if we have these two AI characters plus a human student, there's going to be a lot of prompts and a lot of stuff flying around. So our architecture has been designed so that we're keeping track of what each of the characters is saying. And we're doing that by having what we're calling a global transcript that contains all of the messages that have been written by student, coach, and co-learner. And in addition, anything that's inside the workspace. So anything that the student was doing, if they're doing prompt engineering, they're writing prompts. If it's graphic design, they're drawing stuff. And periodically, we want to ask the teacher to give some feedback to the student, for example. Maybe they're working on something. So we're monitoring what they're doing in their workspace and then triggering the coach, hey, can you check what's happening? Is the student on track? Are they bored? Are they doing something else? And based on our prompts, our evaluation prompts that we wrote, the coach can immediately give some feedback to you. It can either say, yeah, you're doing a great job, you're doing the right thing, or no, you're maybe you should consider this, you're going off track. So I'll finish with a few like insights and things that we learned along the way about building this kind of LLM specific. GPT-5 ate a lot of our code. This QR code, by the way, links to a talk by Andrej Karpathy. If you're not following him about AI-related things, then you should be. His talk is about software and how writing software is changing over time. And when we started building this, we were using GPT-4, we were using like those base models, but the problem that we're having is you need to be really precise with your prompting to get the LLM to behave in the way that you want. You can imagine when we have these two AI characters and they're sort of interacting with each other, things could go very wrong. If the character suddenly goes off track and they start, maybe the student is being adversarial and they're saying things that they shouldn't be saying to the AI and it suddenly goes off track. This was a really difficult thing to manage. You have to kind of cover all of these edge cases. But GPT-5, and a lot of people have been disappointed by this, but I think it's unfair. The router, so this is GPT-5 deciding whether to use their reasoning capabilities or not. actually really helps with this kind of problem. And the reason for that is when you're writing your system prompt for your LLM, maybe there were some edge cases that you didn't consider. And if you were just using like minimal reasoning and no reasoning at all, it's undefined exactly what your AI is going to do. You didn't provide any instructions, so it's going to just do some random thing. When you have reasoning, it's actually much better at getting itself back on track. If the student writes something that's not related to the activity, the coach character can sort of bring their attention back. And it was much more effective at doing that with reasoning than it was without. The other important benefit was that it allows you to be sloppier with writing prompts. So we want our activity designers, who are not necessarily AI experts, to have the opportunity to write or design such activities. It's not always the case that you'll write the perfect prompt. Maybe you'll forget to cover a case. Maybe you'll forget to... maybe there's something that's unexpected that happens and you need the activity to still function. Well, reasoning modes are much more forgiving with that. And that's been a real benefit for us. The downside, of course, is latency. That was another big issue that we've had. They're much slower, of course, because they're writing all of this reasoning thoughts before actually responding. But overall, the more that you can pack into one system prompt, the more instructions that you can put in there, it seems to often work better. When we originally built this, we had separate sort of prompts, separate threads for each of these characters, and we were trying to sort of coordinate all of the messages between them. And that ended up getting very messy. You have to sort of figure out who speaks first, what's happening, what should I do in this particular case. The more that you can combine things into one thread that is sort of controlling everything, the much easier it becomes to control. And this is also true for, particularly true for example, Claude Code, the coding AI. That's actually a very simple architecture. There are lots of coding agents out there. Some of them are super sophisticated. They're spawning lots of extra threads, and they're doing all sorts of things. But Claude just has one big loop that plans what it's going to do and just goes round and round. And it's been the state of the art for a while, just because of that. So this is the slogan to end with: use AI to encourage thinking, not replace it. I think this summarizes how we should be thinking about AI in education. We don't want students to just use AI to solve their schoolwork for them. We should be using AI to try and encourage them to think. So if you're a student or if you're teaching, I would encourage you to think about how, if you're using or how you're using AI. If you're using it to do all your work for you, maybe that's not helping you learn. So think about how we can use it better in the classroom. That's it. Any questions?
Hi, my name is Ella. Thanks. It was very interesting. I have two questions. One is how scalable it is, and is it possible to customize the tool for instance, formal education? And that's one. And the second, have you conducted any impact assessments on the effectiveness of the tool and how it affects learning outcomes?
Sorry, for the first one you said formal education?
Generally, can it be to what extent can it be customized to another disciplines, other types of learners other than, for instance, creative disciplines? Sorry?
Like teach biology with this?
For instance, or is it generally extendable and scalable for higher formal education, not informal like what TUMO is providing? Thank you.
So the first question, yes, I think it is scalable, because this kind of way of learning where you're spending some time yourself trying to understand a concept. So whether that's you're a high school student and you're doing homework, or whether you're a college student and you're spending time working on your exercises, in both cases you need or would benefit from having someone look at what you're doing, whether that's doing a maths problem or solving or thinking about writing an essay or doing a chemistry experiment. There's still a need for someone to give you some feedback. Obviously, with this kind of interface, because it's software, anything that's in the lab, for example, like something that's practical, this is not going to necessarily help very much with. But any kind of knowledge-based learning, I would say, would benefit a lot from having this kind of interface, because I think we all need, especially if we're doing our own research, a guide or somebody who can give us prompts, somebody who can think alongside us, somebody who can challenge us, somebody who can point out where we're going wrong. So I think this is where this kind of tool, where it's helping us think, where it's challenging us and forcing us to, or helping us to do our work better, that's multidisciplinary. That can be applied anywhere. Whether it's useful for like very young students, for example, like preschool or these kinds of age groups, I did see one example where and they had developed a system to help children learn to read, and basically it was voicing out the words for them, or it was checking their pronunciation of words. So they were using it, I think, to learn English, and it was checking their pronunciation and whether they got it right. So I think it's a very flexible system overall. There are lots of subjects and domains that we could use this kind of tool. It just requires a bit of imagination, maybe, to think about what kind of interface would work best. But in general, I think it's applicable. For the impact side of it, so far we haven't deployed it en masse to our students yet. We've only done small scale testing. But so far the results are encouraging, because one of the big challenges that we had with our current activities was that they're not very engaging. If you're just presented with an article or some video or a bit of text that explains something, and then you have multiple choice questions or something like that, a lot of our students do not have the attention, or they don't find it interesting, or it's not really interacting with you in a very practical way. So what we noticed was that our students are much more interested in having something that they can interact with, to play with, something they can talk with. So on that side of it, we're very hopeful, but so far we don't have like raw numbers. Our learning outcomes really much better than before. We don't have that yet.
More questions?
Question like bigger one, you are using AI to teach people, but AI changes the skills that people probably. So can you use AI to define these skills? Because generally, if you can ask ChatGPT, it's relevant at all.
Do you mean like in general? So just any particular skill, or are there some that you have in mind?
So I mean that actually like you take a person and you teach him like basic fundamental science, but right now the skill set of the people is different that is required in the world where you use AI-assisted anything like coding. You don't really need to learn to teach people Python. Like you still need to teach algorithms. Can AI define what it can do and what it cannot do? So how human can augment AI the best? Because AI is like more clever than the average human.
I would argue that that's still something that humans are better at, actually. That it should be up to us to curate the curriculum, to curate what we teach, And while AI is very good at amalgamating knowledge, it's very good at memorizing all the facts and being able to explain things, its reasoning capabilities are still not comparable to a human. So if we were to ask the AI to decide what it thinks we should be teaching humanity, for example, I don't think we're going to get a good answer from that. The other thing is it's a very subjective question of what should we be teaching in general? What skills should we be teaching our children? We still teach how to do mental arithmetic, for example, even though nobody ever does that throughout the rest of their lives. We still teach children how to write with a pen. Should we even be doing that? So I think there are some things where you could, if you were being very pessimistic and very you could argue that a lot of skills maybe are not valuable economically, but there's still the human element. We should still be teaching these things. We should still teach children how to do mental arithmetic because it helps you understand how numbers work. We should still teach you how to write because writing is a way of expressing your thoughts and ideas. And those are sort of timeless things that I don't think, yes, AI might be able to write all our emails and essays for us at some point in the future, but that would somehow get rid of the human part of learning. So I think especially when we're teaching younger children, AI is not a complete replacement for teachers. I don't believe that's the case. There is still something valuable having a human at least involved in the process.
Thank you for presentation. Actually, you have done a really great job. I wanted to ask if you thought about motivation, because self-learning, and especially learning alone, when you don't have a coach nearby to give you feedback, is a very challenging aspect of any learning for long years. If you look for the online learning, nothing changed. Like literally, it's like that text walls all the way, or now talking heads. Have you thought about motivation or customizing, personalizing, all of those things, whatever you can say?
Sure. So actually, TUMO's pedagogy is very much, we call it learner first. So our learners, they can choose ultimately what they want to do. And the idea is that we should be giving them the opportunity to explore all of the different skills, all of the different topics that are out there, so that they can discover what it is that vibes with them. And so I think in our case it's a bit different to sort of traditional education, where you have to attend your maths class and the teacher has to motivate all the students to get them to. And there are some who just don't vibe with maths at all. They don't want to do it. In our case, if a student feels like they don't enjoy doing graphic design, for example, that's fine. If they don't enjoy programming, that's also fine. It's not about forcing you to do something that you don't enjoy. It's really about discovering the things that you do like, that you do find interesting. So the challenge for us is, the motivation is more about the desire to explore. I think that's really the key. It's not about forcing you to finish the activity. It's more about making you curious. So in our case, I think it's about giving the students a lot of options and giving them some guidance as to what things might interest them. If you give them a huge catalog of all the different things that they could learn about, that would be overwhelming. So some guidance, some thoughtful process where we're understanding sort of what things you enjoy, what things you don't. Maybe we can recommend, because you enjoyed that, maybe you'll like this. So we're sort of trying to adapt to the students' interests based on what they want to spend their time doing. If they enjoy a particular thing, we'll try to give them more of it.
Maybe somewhat following on that question, I was curious, how do you measure success then, right? Is it has many hours, if they spend more hours on the platform and they're spending more time learning, is that good? Is being good at exams good? Like, is somebody who neglects every subject but spends a lot of time doing one subject actually outcome? So that would be my question. How do you measure, sort of in a data way, actually performance or success?
you've hit on the the biggest problem of all in education. How do we measure learning outcomes, and how do we decide whether someone succeeded more than another? That's really what we're saying. And in our case, I don't believe that engagement on a platform is a measure of good learning outcomes. The more time you spend on Instagram does not make you a better person. So I think it's not just the amount of time, although that is a factor, but also what it is that you actually came away with. So this is so there are some ideas that I think are helping measure engagement, and one of them, one that I really like is like the Feynman principle. This idea that if you are able to teach somebody else some skill, then that's a really good way of showing that you understand it. Because to really understand something to the level required to teach it means that you must have understood it very well. So there are some proxies that we can sort of measure that help us evaluate whether you really learn something or not. I don't believe exams are necessarily a good means either. I think they're very flawed. It's like a one-time thing. There are lots of issues with that. So instead of just checking your competency on like 1 hour of one particular day in that year, instead we want to be sort of measuring your progress over a much longer period of time. And this is maybe where AI can help us scale that kind of feedback, because in school, in university, your professors, your teachers can only assess you at strict given moments. You have only a few opportunities. If you're in a university and you're teaching hundreds of students, you're never going to know all of them personally either. So just from a matter of scale, this is why we have exams, is because it's scalable to hundreds of students without needing to know them personally. But maybe with AI, we can have a much more personalized kind of review process where we're measuring your level of understanding, either through some technique like Feynman or some other method like that. So I think these are the sort of thoughts and ideas that we should be thinking about more when it comes to measuring attainment.
Interesting.
I have two questions. One is you scratched the surface, but can you describe in which stage is your platform or a system is, and how do you see its perspective in near future or maybe farther future? And the second, did you consider such type of exercise maybe as making competition between the student and the co-learner, for example? Thanks.
Yeah. So we're planning to release the first version of this to our students in October. This coincides with when we'll have a Gen AI skill area for our students. So the first version of this platform will go live then. As far as, sorry, the second part of your question. Perspective. I think this is something, I'm fairly optimistic that something like this is going to work better than what we've seen at the moment, at least when it comes to using AI in education. I feel like a lot of the efforts by the big AI companies have been a bit half-hearted towards education, especially with the study modes. I find them very disappointing. And I think they're sort of missing the fact that, yes, AI is a very powerful tool, but we're sort of still using it in a very lazy way. We're just sort of putting a chatbot in front of students and hoping that they'll do the right thing or that they'll use it well. I don't think we can rely on that. I think we have to be a bit more structured. We have to be a bit more deliberate in the kinds of interactions that students have with AI. And this kind of platform where we're constraining your interaction to you're doing something in a workspace, you're having a deliberate conversation with a coach, this is going to be a much more effective way of, firstly, for students to learn something, but also to not get dependent on having AI do work for them. The competition, I think so long as it's friendly competition, it shouldn't be such that you're trying to. I mean, it could be that you're trying to beat the co-learner on a given task. That can also be motivating. We haven't designed activities that are exactly like that, but I think there is definitely scope for that. I don't see why not.
Do you think these tools have the potential to at least partially cure the problem of lack of, I don't know, physics teachers in the schools, right? Like if when I think about bringing AI to education, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. And what you described here resonates a lot because you take the syllabus generation part on yourself. You say that the educational professionals will design the contents carefully. You don't let it to ChatGPT, but then ChatGPT handles the interaction.
Exactly.
Is that scalable to this type of things, like, I don't know, 7th grade physics?
I definitely see it working that way, and so recently we've been traveling to poorer countries like India, for example, where we actually did some AI workshops in the slums there. And it's a very dire situation when you consider, I met some students who their class size was 90 students per teacher. Like, there's no way that you're going to learn something effectively in that kind of class. So being able to package up some good teaching, a good curriculum, and then have a tool that is able to give you, maybe it's not 100% of what a good coach is, but if it's close enough, it'll make a huge difference to students in those countries, for example.
Interesting. And another question on the technical aspect. So essentially you design the UX, like what is your work, right? So you design the user experience for the kids to work, and then you use GPT-5 to kind of guide the general conversation. And if I got you correctly, you try to keep the same session for all the environments, both the co-learner and the group chat?
That's correct. So they're not sort of fully autonomous. There's some shared communication between them. And in one implementation, we actually have the one LLM thread that is actually outputting the responses and the actions of all AI characters simultaneously.
I see.
So this architecture works very well in terms of keeping everything on track, at the expense sometimes of a bit of latency, because if things
context gets longer and
exactly, it's okay with caching, but still, if it gets too big, then you will end up and waiting a bit for all of them to reply, which is it's okay, but. I think in the future this will get better because
it's when teacher says, "Give me 1 second."
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. We have more questions? Yeah. We can have one more.
Thank you for the talk. One question. In your presented problem, does the coach differentiate between learner and co-learner in advance? Does he take that into account when generating responses? Or it doesn't know which one is learner and which one is co-learner AI?
Right, that's a great question. So we deliberately did not tell the AI that one of them is a human and the other is an AI. So it does not have awareness. So it should treat the AI co-learner the same way that it would treat a human. And not only is that sort of makes the interaction more genuine, but it also makes it more scalable for us, because maybe we could substitute the AI co-learner for another human student, for example, and the system will work in exactly the same way. So yeah, that was an intentional decision, not to distinguish between them.
But then how do you make sure that how do you prompt the ChatGPT to act as a co-learner that does not know these things? And
well, the co-learner has to have a personality, we have to describe who the co-learner is and what they are.
And it works?
It works, yeah. It's
like you don't know physics, right?
LLMs are very
Act like you don't know.
it's very good at taking on multiple sort
Roles.
of personalities roles at the same time.
Cool. Okay, let's thank the speaker again and conclude this session.
Thank you.